We've all heard the headlines: record low unemployment, millions of job openings, and politicians bragging about the strength of the economy. But if you're like many people out there, this doesn't seem to reflect reality. Despite all the noise about a booming job market, getting hired feels nearly impossible. You spend hours searching through job listings, tweaking your resume, and sending out application after application. And what do you get in return? Silence. No callbacks, no interviews, just radio silence. It's enough to make you wonder, how can the job market be so strong, but still feel this broken? Today we are diving deep into the job market and why so many people are finding it impossible to land a job, despite what the numbers say. First of all, let's start with the numbers. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, unemployment in January 2023 hit a 54-year low at 3.4%. Over 2.7 million jobs were added to the payroll in 2023 alone. You'd think with numbers like that, finding a job would be a piece of cake. But if you talk to anyone who's actually out there looking for work, the picture isn't quite so rosy. In fact, according to recent surveys, more than half of unemployed adults said that they were completely burned out by the job search process. People are applying to 30, 40, or even 100 positions and hearing back from just a handful. There's a major disconnect between the glowing job market reports and what people are actually experiencing. While the hard data, the unemployment rates and job creation figures, paints a strong picture of the labour market, the soft data tells a different story. Soft data includes things like consumer confidence and how people feel about their job prospects. And according to the soft data, Americans are more pessimistic than ever about their chance of finding work. Why the disconnect? Well, part of it is that unemployment numbers don't capture the full picture. The unemployment rate only counts people who are actively looking for work. It doesn't include people who've given up or those who are stuck in part-time jobs when they need full-time employment. So while the numbers do look good on paper, they don't account for the millions of people who do feel left behind. And this disconnect is where frustration with politicians comes in. You hear them talk about how great the economy is, how strong the labour market is, but it doesn't match up with what people are actually experiencing. It's no wonder why so many people feel disillusioned when they are hearing about record low unemployment, but they're sending out hundreds of resumes with no luck. Another reason why it feels so tough is because while there are more jobs, the requirements for those jobs have become way more stringent. Many of the openings require experience or skills that the average job seeker might not have, especially for entry-level positions. The competition is fierce, and the companies aren't making it easy in the slightest. Now, let's talk about one of the most frustrating parts of modern job hunting: automation. Specifically, I'm talking about applicant tracking systems, or ATS. These are the systems that stand between your application and a real human being. When you submit your resume online, chances are it's being filtered by an ATS before a hiring manager even lays eyes on it. ATS software is designed to scan resumes for specific keywords, phrases, and qualifications. If your resume doesn't quite hit the right criteria, it gets automatically filtered out. That means no matter how qualified you are, you might never get a chance simply because you didn't word something the right way. Imagine this: you're applying for a marketing position, but instead of using the term digital marketing on your resume, you write online advertising. Even though both mean essentially the same thing, the ATS might not make that connection, and your resume gets tossed aside. It's like playing a game where you don't know all the rules, and it's a game where you're up against hundreds, sometimes thousands of other applicants. Now, this is why job seekers are often told to tailor their resumes for each job they apply to, mirroring the language used in the job description. But even then, the odds are stacked against you. Some estimates suggest that up to 75% of resumes are filtered out by ATS before they ever reach human eyes. Now, even if you do get past the ATS, there's still a good chance you'll be ghosted by the employer. Ghosting, where an employer stops communicating with you without an explanation, has become an all too common part of the job search process. You can make it through several rounds of interviews only to be met with total silence. No feedback, no rejection letter, just nothing. Now, ghosting is incredibly demoralizing, especially after you've invested time and energy into the interview process, and it's happening more frequently. So, why is ghosting so prevalent now? One reason is sheer volume. Thanks to the internet, applying for jobs is easier than ever. That means companies are flooded with applications, and many simply don't have the capacity to respond to everyone. Moving on, let's talk about entry-level jobs for a minute. Once upon a time, an entry-level job meant just that: a position for someone with little to no experience, looking to get their foot in the door. But these days, many entry-level positions require 3 to 5 years of experience. How is that entry-level? How are people even supposed to get experience when even the most basic positions are out of reach? This creates a major barrier for new graduates and young professionals. They're entering the workforce with fresh degrees and a lot of enthusiasm, only to be met with unrealistic expectations. It's no wonder why so many are feeling disillusioned and burnt out right at the start of their careers. And then there's the pressure to have done multiple internships while in school. Internships used to be a bonus, something that could help you stand out, but now they've practically become a requirement. But here's the kicker. Many of these internships are unpaid, so now not only do students need to juggle schoolwork, they also have to squeeze in unpaid internships just to be considered for a full-time job. For students who don't have the financial means to work for free, this puts them at a huge disadvantage. It's almost like we've created a system that rewards those who can afford to work for nothing and leaves everyone else scrambling to catch up. There's also something called credential inflation at play. As more people have gained access to higher education, the value of a degree has diminished in the job market. Whereas a bachelor's degree used to be enough to land a decent job, now it's often considered the bare minimum. In some cases, even jobs that didn't traditionally require a degree, like administrative roles, are now asking for them. This inflation of credentials means job seekers need to go above and beyond just to meet the baseline requirements for jobs that don't pay what they used to. Now, let's look at the explosion of job applicants. Thanks to the internet, job postings are accessible to millions of people around the world. It's never been easier to apply for a job, but that also means you're up against far more competition than ever before. Think about it this way, 20 or 30 years ago, if you wanted a job, you might have had to physically walk into a business, introduce yourself, and hand over your resume. That face-to-face interaction gave you a chance to make a personal connection. Now, everything is done online. It's impersonal, and it turns every job application into a numbers game. On top of that, the remote work evolution has opened up job opportunities to a global workforce. That means you're not just competing with people in your local area anymore, you're competing with candidates from across the country and even around the world. While remote work has been a game changer for flexibility, it's also made the job market way more competitive. Because there are so many candidates, employers can afford to be extremely picky. They know they'll have hundreds of applications to choose from, so they can raise the bar even higher. Why settle for someone with the minimum qualifications when you can get someone who ticks every box? And this is part of the problem. Job postings have become more like wish lists, with employers asking for a perfect candidate who has all the experience, all the skills, and will work for a salary that doesn't match the job requirements. Another factor making the job search harder is economic uncertainty. While the job market has been strong in recent years, there are concerns about a potential recession on the horizon. This has led to hiring freezes, layoffs, and more cautious hiring practices. Companies are hesitant to bring on new employees if they're unsure about the future of the economy. And even if they do hire, they might be slower to make decisions, drawing out the hiring process even further. The Federal Reserve has also been raising interest rates to combat inflation, which has had an impact on businesses. Higher borrowing costs mean companies are less likely to invest in growth, which includes hiring new staff. So even though there are job openings, employers might not be in a rush to fill them. Finally, we need to talk about the emotional toll that job hunting takes. The constant rejection, ghosting, and lack of feedback can wear you down mentally and emotionally. And it's not just older workers, it's hitting younger generations even harder than ever. Searching for a job can feel like a full-time job in itself, and it's one that comes with very little reward. Every day can feel like Groundhog Day, waking up, sending out resumes, and waiting for responses that never come. There's also still the stigma of unemployment to deal with. Even though the job market is tough, there's still a societal pressure to find work, and being unemployed can feel like a personal failure. But the reality is, the system is broken, and it's not your fault. It's important to recognize the toll that job hunting takes on your mental health and to lean on your support systems, whether it's friends, family, or a professional network. Having people to talk to can make a big difference. It's also crucial to take breaks when you need them. Burnout is real, and taking care of yourself is just as important as sending out that next application. So, why does getting a job feel impossible right now? Well, it's a combination of automation, oversaturation of applicants, unrealistic job postings, and the impersonal nature of the digital job market. We are stuck in a transition period between the old ways of hiring and a new technology-driven system that isn't quite working yet. But here's the thing, how do we fix it? How do we create a system where job seekers feel valued and employers can find the right candidates without making the process so dehumanizing and dystopian? It's a tough question, but it's one we need to start asking, because if things don't change, we're only going to see more frustration and burnout from job seekers. Well, thanks for watching everyone. If you have experienced any of these job hunting nightmares, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Together, maybe we can start a conversation that leads to change. But until next time, this has been another episode of Just My Thoughts, and I'll see you guys in the next one.